Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the WrestleWatch podcast. We are here in 2025. Doug is over there. How are you doing, Doug?
I'm good. Is this our first show of 2025? I feel like it's not.
I think it. I don't. No, we didn't do a show last week, so yeah, it is.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
happy 2025,
happy
everybody.
2025. Doug, if you wouldn't mind, if you have it in front of you, our little blurb of what we do here at WrestleWatch.
Of course, this is the WrestleWatch podcast, as Ryan said. We're the only weekly podcast where we discuss free agency, contract negotiations, and the overall landscape of talent and management dynamics in the world of professional wrestling. You can follow us on the WrestleWatch YouTube channel, where we stream the show live every week, or follow us on your podcast catcher of choice. You can follow us on Blue Sky and X, where we post updates, including our meticulously curated WrestleWatch tier list, and on Substack for long form articles where we analyze the likelihood of talents leaving, joining, and of course, jumping between various wrestling promotions with a special focus on WWE, AEW, New Japan, and Stardom. And a special note, all Substack subscribers are able to become voters for our weekly polls on who is jumping and who is staying.
Yeah, we're going to be launching that, I think, this coming week. So be on the lookout in your email if you are a Substack subscriber. That was a tricky one.
Substack is hard word to say.
It is. It is. Um, okay, well, let's just jump right into it of this week's episode. First up, let's just give a recap of where we were last time we got together. That was back in still December in 2024. The last update that we had of the WrestleWatch tier list. If you are watching on YouTube, great. You can see exactly what we're talking about. You can look and you can pause right now to see who was where and where you might want someone to go. If you're listening on audio, it doesn't matter because we're about to change everything. First up, it's going to be Baron Corbin. He was previously in a tier known as Safe Stay, which meant that he is safely staying right now, considered independent. Fightful reported that New Japan and Corbin have been in contact and that New Japan has interest in him, but no knowledge of how deeply the talks went. Corbin was also backstage at AEW World's End, but he was just visiting friends. So, Doug, how are you feeling about Baron Corbin? What do you think is most likely for him at this point of time?
So let's talk about those two options. And we'll talk about them separately. We have AEW and then we have New Japan. I want to talk about AEW first. Um, a lot of people have said, "Oh, Tony should bring this guy in." I don't know why people are saying that, but people are saying that. I am hearing it. I'm hearing the people. The
Mm-hmm.
streets are talking,
Yes, they are.
and I don't really see that happening. I think he'd be a very bad fit. He's been someone who's, whether it's part of his gimmick or not, I kind of tend to think it's a little mixture of both. He was very uh, dismissive of AEW, and he was just kind of the dumb talking against your own interests that a lot of times you see with a lot of the very very stupid people in wrestling. As Bronson Reed has said, some wrestlers are just stupid, don't know what to say. So he said a lot of negative things about AEW in the past. Um, but having said that, and for that reason alone, I don't really see him coming in, and I don't think anyone really wants him in there. He's interesting because I'm gonna bring this up too. We recently saw kind of this big Raw debut in on Netflix, obviously, this past week, and something that occurred to me with
Mm-hmm.
the presentation of it is that they have very, very successfully built a brand, built a promotion that, you know, they themselves kind of push this idea that match quality doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It really doesn't. And he's kind of like the poster child of that because he's never been a good in-ring worker. Yet they've done a good job, and when I say they, WWE has done a good job of like making their fan base care about him when he was there as a heel, but they've also done it in a way where he's not really of any real value anyone outside of WWE. Like AEW fans aren't going to want him, but they were able to use him and make him a star to a degree in WWE, and but they did it in a way where he didn't really have any leverage.
Yeah.
So you could argue that's really smart on WWE's part to do that, and I think they're seeing that with a couple of people. You could argue that's the same thing with Solo Sikoa. If he left WWE tomorrow, I don't see a lot of interest in AEW for him. Yet he's a main eventer in WWE right now.
Mhm.
I think you can make an argument for Dom Mysterio, and I think you make an argument for Baron Corbin.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this company has done now. They've made this situation where these people are just not valuable to AEW, but they're valuable to them, for better or worse.
Mhm.
Now, for that reason, I don't think he's going to AEW. Now, New Japan. Here's the thing. Initially, I want to dismiss this outright. Oh, he's not going to New Japan. But I will say this. This is a company, New Japan, that does do these quarterly USA shows where they have Windy City Riot, Battle in the Valley, was it Vengeance is another one, I think, right?
Capital Collision.
Capital Collision. So they do these shows in America, and a lot of times they try to bring someone in, whether it's a Matt Riddle or Nick Nemeth, someone that is kind of known to American fans, and he's kind of someone I could see bringing in for that.
Mhm.
And I initially went toss up for that reason. But then the more I'm thinking about it is they don't really sign people though. Those are usually like one-off deals.
Yeah.
But they could bring them in. I mean, who knows? I mean, they bring in some weird people, and they may end up staying a little while. You look at the Mighty Don't Kneel, TMDK. They're obviously kind of mainstays now.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say he's still safe stay in my mind, but I'm willing to go up higher.
Okay. Well, I think I pretty much agree with everything you were saying about the situation there. I don't see his value to AEW when they have a lot of guys like him, I feel like. Um, New Japan, I could see the value just because to have I guess a steady hand kind of guy is not unvaluable, and the way that they structure the stables and stuff in New Japan means that he would, actually get some work, even if he was working in Japan, I mean.
Yes.
So I'm still feeling more on the stay side of things with this, just because also it's them just talking, and nobody's heard anything more than just their talking. Um, so I wouldn't be surprised if our committee went toss up with it, like you were thinking initially. But I think I would be on the stay side of the spectrum as well.
And I think that's a fair representation for sure. And what did we decide? What did the committee decide?
Toss up was the decision. It might have been your tendrils getting out there into the ether. Toss up is what's
Yeah.
going to happen.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like it's tricky, and I think even more so now, it's tricky
Mhm.
with New Japan because we don't. It's hard to tell what they're even doing with their contracts at this moment.
Yeah, it is.
Like it's because the company is, I'd say for the past 2 years at least, they've been in this kind of weird rebuild.
Mhm.
Post COVID, they still haven't like refound their footing, and it's hard to tell like who is locked up and who isn't. It does seem like they're a little more cognizant of their foreign talent and locking them up, but it's still tricky to tell.
Yeah, that's something that we're going to get into later on the podcast about foreign talent featured in New Japan, because we're going to be doing a 2024 review, looking back at who we had and what tier back this date, 2024. See if maybe our 1 year window, if we were right about things or if we were very wrong. So next up is going to be Becky Lynch here. She is currently in the safe stay tier of the tier list. Fightful reported that, quote, Lynch agreed to a contract at some point. Note that doesn't say signed, it says agreed to a contract. Rumors are that Lynch will be returning to Raw this coming week. There was also an interesting rumor that I saw bandied around that I'm not sure how accurate it was, but it was that Lynch was supposed to appear on Raw this week, and that it was scrapped for The Undertaker to appear after the Rhea Ripley match instead. I don't know how voracious that one is. I think Fightful disputed that one, but I think it might have been, I can't remember who it was that said it originally. It might have been Pro Wrestling Insider or somebody like that. Not to misattribute, but um, so where do you think that it's over with Becky? Do you expect to see her on Raw on Monday, Doug?
I think it's very over. And there was even a rumor. I don't remember where this came from, so don't attribute it. Like, don't give it little credence, because I don't exactly remember where I read it. But I wouldn't be shocked where I saw that both Becky Lynch and Charlotte were listed on internal rosters now.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'm at the point where I'm not gonna. I almost honestly voted just take her off the tier list, to be completely honest.
yeah.
It's almost like it was as sure a thing as could possibly be. Um, and I think I decided to wait just a little bit, just because I could, just because we knew she didn't have a contract, she was out of contract. So if it was a situation where she was still under contract and this was happening, I would have just taken her off the tier list. But just for the sake of complete, just to make sure that we wait till she actually signs on the dotted line.
Mhm.
Uh, I decided to just go safe stay, keep her at safe stay. But if we wanted to take her off, I'd be completely fine with it.
Yeah, I think that it might be time just to take her off. I mean, either I have low confidence in it, or I guess this is as close to confirmed before Monday, for that
Yeah.
matter. Um, what do you think about that this path that she went on, where she went away for a little bit? Sounds like she might have done a film role of some kind in between, and now she's coming back to WWE. It sounds like. Do you think that that was the best way for her, or do you think that she might have made a little bit of an error?
No, I think she did. I think there's nothing wrong with the approach she took, because if you look at it this way, she left this company to go take a break, allegedly, which looks like that might be the case. Go home, be with her kid, um, and try and do other things, explore other opportunities. And now she's going to come back. And I think that, ultimately there's not, did we think that there was maybe a little bit more to it, maybe exploring other options? And maybe she did. I don't know. Maybe she did talk to other people and she just determined that this was the best option, or maybe she got the best deal. Uh, but it doesn't shock me. I mean, I don't think we ever had her anywhere near a possible jump.
No, I don't think that she was above. I don't think she even got to toss up, even.
No, yeah, I feel like she's always been in the stay. We were always either, and I don't think she ever got up to lean stay even.
Mm-mm,
No, I
I don't
think
think
she
so.
was, yeah. So we always, since she's been on this tier list, since she left, she's been pretty firmly, yeah, she'd be back at some point. We all kind of felt that, and that kind of played out exactly what we expected. Sure, we speculated there could be other things going on where maybe she'd try other places, but or at least test the waters.
Yeah,
But that didn't happen. I mean, I remember there was thoughts that she might end up at that one what Pro Wrestling Eve show.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, as like a mystery person. But once again, we would have thought it was just like a one-off.
Yeah.
And I will say this: I wouldn't have been surprised if she did do a one-off indie somewhere. She didn't do that, but I wouldn't have been shocked. So I think going for I think we did a good job with this. And if we're going uh, safe stay or even taking her off, I'm totally fine with that.
They're gonna go with just taking her off is gonna be the solution here. And we'll find out, I guess, Monday. If she doesn't appear on Monday, then she might be back on the list because um, that'll be that's the time to bring her back, I would
Well,
think, right?
and yeah, well, and here's the other thing. They did have this big Raw debut, and I think there's been a lot of talk about that number on
Mhm.
Netflix. Most people that I have been looking at and seeing of the analysts, they say it's been, for the most part, it feels like it was a good number, but it wasn't a great number.
Talking about the
For
viewership.
yeah,
Yeah.
for the debut, that seems to be kind of the talking point that I see going around, at least from the people I think that actually, you know, analyze this stuff and take it seriously and aren't just, you know, talking out their ass. So I think that maybe they're just spreading this out to kind of like make this last a little bit longer, have another, don't blow it all on the debut, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think that her coming back the second week or the third week wouldn't be that shocking to me.
Yeah, let me try to find. So I saw a WrestleNomics did a little bit longer of an article of trying to analyze the numbers, which, so just so people are aware, we're talking about the Raw viewership. The thing that Netflix and WWE did was that they released a third-party analytics study by a company called Video Amp, which I had not heard of before this time. Um, and they said that 2.6 million households watched live and same day to Raw in the United States. To kind of wade through those waters there a little bit, a household is not the same as viewership, and that's the number that Nielsen usually releases when you see it, like, get posted everywhere. It's viewers, not households. Um,
And
and
then I think they said the conversion is like what 1.4 to
yeah,
1.3.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's somewhere around there at this point. It's like around 1.4. So if you consider that, and you also consider that Video Amp versus Nielsen, Video Amp is usually about like 10% higher of what they're reporting than what Nielsen reports. Um, it converts to around 3 million viewers in the US. And of course, the other thing is, I'm sure this is going to be the case next week um, if they, release stuff about Raw next week, even. I expect the US number to drop a lot more than the worldwide number does, just because I think people online are talking to each other, and people noticed that the US feed had hard cut full screen ad breaks, and the international feed had no ad breaks, and it was just like everything just continued. So I wouldn't be surprised that maybe the worldwide numbers don't drop super much, but the US numbers drop a lot if they release them, which I don't know if they necessarily will. And then that's the other part of it, is that around it was registered as around 5 million views worldwide of live plus 1 day, which is the 24-hour period after Raw finished up, so until 11 p.m. on Tuesday night Eastern time, which is not a lot, honestly. When you think about worldwide viewership, it's only it's 3 million in US, 2 million worldwide. uh it feels kind of low, especially considering what numbers we see sometimes of like viewership in Canada or in the UK is usually in like the hundreds of thousands on their own. So I'm a little bit surprised by how it tracked. But I don't think that it's at any point right now a negative for WWE being on Netflix. The most interesting thing, of course, coming out of that show was that the first headlines were about Hulk Hogan getting booed,
Yeah.
and those got carried by the trade papers. And that was the first thing anybody was talking about with that show. So it had a lot of negativity in the ecosystem about the show, and people critiquing about how it felt not like a regular Raw episode. It was very, as you were pointing out earlier, Doug, about the match quality kind of stuff. What you noticed this past week when you watched the Raw episode was that the matches were, they were above average matches. Nothing was like the greatest thing ever, but they were above average matches, and they were very, very much so in the minority of the program for the time. There was a lot of time dedicated to promos by old timers, essentially, which is not usually how Raw works. So I'm going to be interested to see if next week you might see people that were casually tuning into Netflix saying, "Wait, where's The Rock? Where's Cena? Where's so and so? I thought that they were going to be on here every week." So
Well,
I
it's and this is obviously not a ratings podcast, but I think it does just kind of tie into the discussion of like, using talent at certain spots, especially when we're talking about Becky Lynch or other people returning. It reminds me of the Fox debut, to be honest, where it had
yeah.
this massive number.
Hmm.
It was really, really good. And then it ultimately just kind of collapsed to the point that Fox felt like they overpaid. I don't want to say that's what's going to happen here, because it's not the same deal. It's a different deal. It's a deal that gives Netflix a lot more power and leverage. Um, and it's international too, so that's the other part of it. Like they gave a lot to Netflix. I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Yeah, they
And
did. Yeah.
and so for that reason, I do think that it probably will get to that point where the number is going to drop pretty drastically, just because it does every single time. Uh, every
Yeah.
single time they have like a big debut, that's the peak of the show. Like I think it's fair to say Raw is never doing higher than this on Netflix
Probably
ever
not.
again.
Yeah.
I doubt it. I
And
mean, maybe, I don't know. I shouldn't say never, because there might be like some big thing that happens, but it's unlikely.
I think we'll
And
also have to see how they build their brand synergy with Netflix. Because again, this is not just Raw. It's Raw in the US. It's everything everywhere else.
mhm.
So NXT and SmackDown were on Netflix this week in the rest of the world. Um, so it's $5 billion for 5 years for everything. It's and also just to give reference, SmackDown's debut on Fox did around 4 million viewers in 2019. So if we look at
In the
Raw
US only.
in the U.S. only, so if you consider that, and it looks like they did probably around the same viewership worldwide in the live plus 1 day window that SmackDown probably did worldwide in its 2019 debut. Which, if you look at where SmackDown ended up at the end of its time on Fox, is not the worst thing in the world. It could be far worse for WWE with the viewership with that. But I think that it's a good, healthy start for them moving into this new era where I don't know if what they were expecting, you know.
Exactly.
Um, so that's it for that part of the podcast.
And Becky Lynch.
And Becky Lynch. We're gonna go to Malakai Black next, who is not on the tier list at the present moment. Malakai on screen this week, we had Will Ospreay versus Buddy Matthews to kick off Dynamite on this past Wednesday. Ospreay gave a promo telling Buddy that he and Brody do not need a leader, and that's all kayfabe. But backstage following this, Fightful asked their sources within AEW regarding Black's status, and they were, quote, of the belief that he was finishing up with AEW if he hadn't already. SRS later tweeted out that he doesn't expect him back in AEW. Malakai has option years after 2025 on his contract that extends it to 2027. There has not been any confirmation or reports regarding the options being taken up, declined, etc. And Black is still on the roster for AEW at the moment. So Doug, first off, do you think that this is that we've already seen the last of Malakai Black in AEW? And if so, where do you think he's going to end up? I think that part's the easy part.
Yes. So I do think that we've seen the last of him, and it feels like he's been on this like goodbye tour since All Out 2022 or whenever it was, where he was trying to get out the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And and he's been on and off the tier list constantly, just because it's hard to really gauge what Tony Khan is thinking with these contracts, because we took him off for a while because it became kind of clear that Tony Khan was not going to be letting people out of their contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then, obviously the times changed, circumstances change, and it looks like this may be a situation where Tony's not going to execute to extend him a little bit longer, which I think is fair at this point. I think he is physically limited. Obviously, that would explain why he's been working the way he's been working. I think he's probably had since September 2022, which was the brawl out, all out,
Mm-hmm.
where he gave his like curtain call farewell, where it looked like he was going to be leaving. Since that, he has probably had less singles matches than I have fingers. I could probably count his single matches on one hand.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of people speculate it's because of his, he's physically limited. He has some back issues and things like that. Is the speculation, which I think is possible. It's probable. And I think that the House of Black obviously has its fans, but I don't think it's ever been seen as a significant main event over group. And I think this past Wednesday, it kind of showed that, that was the most interesting I've seen Buddy Murphy in since his entire time in AEW.
Mhm.
Uh, and that was when he kind of finally got away from the House of Black. And you also have Brody King, who's doing stuff in New Japan and a lot more single stuff, and he's great in the C2. He really kind of shined. And now you have Julia Hart really getting the spotlight. They're more interesting now on their own, even though they're still technically part of a group, but they're not really presenting them as a group at the moment. They're presenting them kind of separately.
Mhm.
And they're more interesting now than they were ever as just part of this House of Black under Malakai. So I think it's good for everybody, and I think it'd be good for him to go. And here's the thing, I don't know if he's going to necessarily thrive in WWE. My gut is that he's going to get a really, really big, strong reaction when he first shows up. And then I think over time, he's just going to slowly vanish. Similar, and people are going to care a lot less, similar to how
Andrade.
Andrade was when
Yeah.
he went back.
So fun question for you there. So he's had 15 singles matches all time in AEW. How many of those do you think happened in 2024?
One.
5.
Really?
Yeah.
What were they on? They
Um,
all Collision, I'm assuming.
in February, he did Brian Keith on Collision. In March, it was a match against Christopher Daniels on Rampage. May, he had a match against Kyle O'Reilly on Dynamite. He did the Double or Nothing Steel Cage match with Adam Copeland, and then the Adam Cole match that happened about 2 months ago, where he actually lost a match clean.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay. But then I'm guessing most the years prior, he probably wasn't having too many singles matches.
No, he wrestled no singles matches in 2023, for
Yeah.
example. 2 in 2022.
You know
Yeah.
what? Let's see what happens with him. But I chose to go. I chose to go likely jump with him.
Uh-huh.
Like I think I think he's basically I think he's going to WWE. I think he's gone essentially. It was just a matter of whether or not he was going to get out of his contract, and we didn't really get a feeling for that. And now that we have these reports that and the tea leaves are showing that he's probably gone, so I get it.
Here's my thing about all of that is I don't know how much of this is a work.
I don't
Because
think it's a work.
well, I mean it matches perfectly up with the storyline that they would be presenting on TV at the same time. So that's why I'm more apprehensive. I mean, like the story on TV makes one think that Buddy Matthews will be having a match with Malakai Black, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
but the reports say he's not coming back.
Oh, here's the thing
Kind of
though.
kitchen.
I feel like we do this a lot where we think like, oh, this would be a really cool story where they're just kind of working everyone. But I feel like it's so few and far between that we ever actually see that be the case. It's usually just that they're leaving.
Yeah.
Like how often do we see like a story where they're leaving and the reports are that they're finishing up and then they pop back? Usually we find out we usually for those we just kind of assume it's a work and we know it's a work and it's very obvious.
Hmm.
This is one where I feel like it feels definitely like he's gone, and all the ones where I feel like he's definitely gone, he usually is very gone. So I
Okay.
think he's gone. So now, if that ends up being the case, I think that'd be very cool. That'd be a cool little story. And listen, I like to be worked. If they're gonna work me, I'm gonna be happy. Because I think that's cool. But I don't see the track record of them successfully doing that.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I guess we'll find out sometime soon which
Yeah.
way it's happening. Because like I think that if he's coming back and he has one last match, even it would be for the Grand Slam pay-per-view in Australia, to put over Buddy or Brody before leaving. He doesn't feel like the kind of guy that would just leave without putting over those guys. You know,
No.
um,
Yeah, I don't think
he,
so
he
either.
he seems to really like them and respect them, and he's always been friends with Brody, for a long time. So that's this part of this where it just doesn't really track for me unless, maybe his contract, the option years was now. Maybe that's when the original contract ended, and now he's not in contract anymore. But that's why I'm apprehensive. So how about we put him on the tier list, like you said, as a likely jump for now, and we'll see if I'm very wrong soon enough. I think you might. I don't think you'll be very wrong. I think you're going to be right at the end of the day. By the end of 2024 or 2025, that's what year we're in. You'll probably not be in AEW anymore. But
I think so.
yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
one person who is very easy to say will not be in AEW anymore is Penta.
Yes.
For a number of weeks now, they've been teasing on Raw. First they put like the zero with the slash through it, which is like the zero medal that Penta usually has as one of his calling cards. Then they started forming his mask on teasers, and then finally now this week they flashed his name on screen during the Netflix debut. At the same time, there was a backstage promo that happened with Chad Gable, where he's I guess his storyline right now is that he doesn't like luchadors, he doesn't like lucha wrestling, he doesn't think that it's proper wrestling. So he challenged. He said, "Hey, Adam Pearce, find me somebody for next week for Raw for me to challenge. Find me a luchador." And Adam Pearce is like, "I'm gonna make a call," and then this flashes on screen. So seems like that's the match for next week or this coming Monday is Penta versus Chad Gable, which I would say sounds like he is a confirmed jump. Doug, what do you think?
I said that he's a confirmed jump. I don't know how much more confirmed jump you can be aside from him just standing there on the Raw stage.
Yeah, and
Like,
I think that this is like a good dichotomy or contrast with Becky Lynch, where it's like we're kind of having to read a little bit more into the Becky Lynch stuff because it's kind of weird how some of it's getting a phrase. We're getting some rumors that seem to contradict each other. Penta is just straight up. We know that he's going to show up on Monday. Like
yeah,
we really sure he's going to show up Monday.
absolutely.
But
Yeah,
so,
he's gone. He's gone.
he's gone.
He's gone from AEW. He's arriving in WWE, and he's going to be very, very over
Yeah,
for a while
I
at
hope
least.
I hope he doesn't get sped. You know.
Yes, I think that he would fit incredibly well there.
I think that he will as well. I think that he'll get very over with the crowds there. Um, yeah, I expect good things for him. I'm not sure. I think his ceiling is probably um, at Intercontinental level kind of title level. I don't not necessarily world title, but I think that he will get over enough that people might want him to be world champion.
Hmm.
So, Pets Penta. That's quick. Now this is a fun one. Is Persephone? Have you been hearing about all this with Persephone, Doug?
A little bit. I do think that some people are maybe just looking into this a little bit more and just seeing Vicaire uh 2.0 in the situation where she pops up on a New Japan show or an AEW show and then suddenly WWE is interested. Which once again, that may be the case because we've seen that happen before. I don't know that they're immediately going to jump on signing her.
Mhm.
I also don't know what her CMLL contract status is. So for that reason, I actually um I went lean stay.
Okay. So the background here is for people that aren't aware, Persephone was CMLL's entry into the Wrestle Dynasty International Women's Cup match, where she faced Momo Watanabe, Willow Nightingale, and Athena in a four-way. She didn't win that match. That was won by Momo, which is pretty fun to see what they're gonna do with that contract that she'll have now for a title challenge. But Persephone did pretty well in the match, and of course, people before Wrestle Dynasty, such as myself, when we did our predictions for 2025, I said that there's going to be at some point a Stephanie Vacour like jump again to WWE, somebody that gets featured on one of those AEW cross promotional shows, and then WWE suddenly has interest in them. Well, lo and behold, The rumors started up right after that, saying that WWE did have interest in Persephone. For example, I believe it was Rob Viper reported that she had at one point did a tryout even with WWE, which again, some same thing happened with Stephanie Victor. She had had a tryout with WWE previously. Um, so I I want to be apprehensive, but at the same time, I think that it's a a proactive step to consider anybody from CMLL that gets featured on any AEW cross promotional show.
I think that's my biggest thing is like I just don't like this idea of like, oh, they were on they're CMLL and went on across. Because here's and then this is gonna sound mean of me. I don't necessarily think that she, was as impressive as Vicaire.
I agree with that. I also think that Stephanie Becker had, being that it was a singles program with Mercedes, it was structured a little bit differently and allowed her to showcase herself a lot more. Also,
And I think she has a better presence than Persephone too. Vicaire is just
yeah,
you just see her and she looks like a star.
yeah,
Persephone is nice. She's fine,
yeah.
but she didn't feel like she didn't have an aura to her.
Yeah, I understand that, and I would say to contrast that with the Lucha Gauntlet match that they had, which was Casino Gauntlet rules, which was fun to see another promotion doing it like that style. I think that's kind of what CMLL usually does anyway. Um, but Mascola Dorada and Sobrano Jr. Kind of wowed people as well with presence. Like they showed up and really wowed people. I wouldn't be surprised to see their names get floated around in these rumors too. But right now, I think that it sounds like Persephone might be the one that WWE might have interest in. I still think that we should leave her down on the stay side of the column. I think that you agree with that, right, Doug?
Yes,
So
yes,
well,
absolutely.
unfortunately, our committee feels more toss up about it.
That's we'll see. I think that I think this is a situation that as the weeks go by and they don't hear anything, they're going to slowly forget about this match. They're going to slowly forget about Persephone, because I think most people probably have only seen her in this match
Yeah,
unless they're watching CMLL regularly.
yeah,
I don't think that we're going to see him because that's the only thing. Vicaire was like New Japan Strong Champ.
yeah,
She was, a belt collector. I mean, she was presented like a major star in a
yes,
way that Persephone is not.
yeah.
So I think that yeah.
I think it's possible that maybe also as the photo that we have here is her tagging with Stephanie Vecco. It's possible that maybe they might ask her like, hey, what do you think about her? Which who knows which way that will go. But yeah, I think we're gonna probably review this in a few weeks to see if anything is going on. Last of the updates for this week is Viva Van. She posted a video on her social media with a package she received from AEW saying it was the first box I got from AEW since I've been signed. I have not seen a single outlet reporting on where she is signed or if she is signed or anything at all. Like no Fightful, no Wrestling Observer, no PW Insider. Nobody of that level of repute is reporting on her. The upcoming New Japan Battle in the Valley show lists her promotion as, quote, NJPW Academy. In contrast to Trish Adora, she is listed as ROH/New Japan Academy. So I'm just going to be upfront with this. I'm very apprehensive about having her on the tier list at all, just because I just think that like all this stuff that we're seeing with like, oh yeah, she's listed as like New Japan Academy and not as like if she signed to AEW or ROH. I feel like at this point they would have changed her billing on these shows. She's listed as New Japan whenever she goes to CMLL. Maybe she signed to New Japan. Maybe, you know.
It sounds like okay. And then also Tony Khan has talked about this a lot where he's going to have like these close ties between New Japan and ROH specifically.
Yeah.
Like he would talk about this and we don't really see what it is, but I kind of get it, and I I feel like she signed something.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like she's under some type of deal. whether it be New Japan or ROH. So I am inclined to just say, you know what? And I'll even take an L on this one because I was one of the people who was just like, I think she's just talking. I think she's just going to be under one of these, per date deals, and that's going to be it for a while.
Yeah.
So I think I was wrong. It looks like I think that she has signed something. I think she's under contract. That's more than just a pay per appearance deal.
Mhm.
So I am of the opinion that she should be taken off the tier list.
Well, I suppose, I mean, I kind of agree, uh, but it seems like people want to see more info, from our committee, so they'd like to just leave her as a safe jump for now, rather than just completely removing her.
And you know what? To give them some credence on that, it's not really very clear what's going on with her.
Yeah,
And you would think that if but she did say she signed something.
yeah, which could be an apartment lease. We don't know.
uh, why do these people? Why can't you just be clear?
I know.
When you
It's
signed
like,
a contract, let us know.
yeah,
Like,
I agree, and it's weird to me that nobody is reporting about it.
yeah,
Like that's like I saw like a Cultaholic posted, but they're an aggregator first off, but they posted signed, and then they linked to the video where she doesn't say where she signed. So it's just frustrating to
yeah.
try to
It's her,
follow
it's her
this one.
gym membership.
It could be a gym. It could be so many things. So many things. So that's the end of the tier list portion of this episode. If we could walk through who is where on the tier list right now.
I'm I'm gonna go through the whole thing by myself.
Okay.
All right. So on safe jump, we have Hikuleo, Speedball Mike Bailey, Viva Van. Likely jump is Ray Phoenix, Jordan Grace, Ricky Starks, and Malakai Black. Lean jump, Zilla Fatu, Ninja Mac, friend of the podcast, Josh Alexander. Then for toss up, we have Mina Shirakawa, Beth Phoenix, Michael Oku, Baron Corbin, and Persephone. Lean stay is Joe Hendry, Alex Windsor, Leon Slater, Samantha Irvin, Indy Hartwell, Tegan Knox, Matt Cardona. Likely stay is Sami Zayn, Tekla, AJ Styles, Mustafa Ali, Dragon Dia, Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, Maya Iwatani, Danhausen. And then safe stay is Sari, Utami Hayashishita, Hook, Street Profits, El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr., Kevin Owens, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Megan Bain.
Nicely done. I think we might be, and just so people are aware of folks that got nominated this week but didn't make it onto the ballot. We had some discussion regarding David Finley, El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr., Kevin Knight, Mina Shirakawa, Mascara Dorado, Naomichi Marufuji, Nikki Bella, Ricky Starks, Sobrano Jr., and Subculture. So some of those might come up next week. I think Alex Windsor could also possibly come up next week.
Did you see Marafuji? Did you see the Marigold show on 1-3?
I did not watch it.
Uh,
What happened with that?
so they had a women's GHC title match on that show, and they had Marafuji come out just to sit at the commentary table during the match as sort of the GHC representative of Noah,
Yeah.
and he just seemed like he did not want to be there. He just could not be more interested.
Yeah, and he made some comment after the new year about like NXT or about Shawn Michaels, which kind of made people think, oh, maybe he's gonna leave and go to Florida. But yeah, after that, what you just said, it doesn't sound like necessarily he's really wanting to be in all of that Fed orbit stuff that's happening to him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. He's an enigma
He's an enigma, and
who has really good chops.
um, so well, let's like just look back at where we were exactly 1 year ago now. This was the tier list, and back then we had S tier through F tier. We didn't do safe stay to like the safe jump as our tiers, and we also had funny pictures for the people, just in good fun. This was the tier list as of the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, that we have, and we're gonna go through that now just to see where we were wrong and where we were very right, very ahead of time. So the safe jumps that we had 1 year ago were Mercedes Moné, Grizzled Young Veterans, and the AEW CMLL relationship. I think we knocked it out of the park on these ones.
Yeah, we nailed that one. I
Yeah,
think like we should be very proud of the AEW CMLL relationship too, because I think we had that like on the tier list way early.
we had that starting like the summer of 2023 before they even started like showing anybody on screen with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When it was just very clear that like the AAA relationship was collapsing, and it just honestly it made sense from like day one to like work with CMLL over
yeah.
AAA, but for some reason they went with AAA. Really, I don't understand that because they were so adamant of trying to get a New Japan relationship working. Why would they start one with AAA?
It might have been that if the Lucha Bros were working with AAA still, that maybe they wanted to keep them happy and whatever they wanted, you know?
Yeah, it could be that. Like it was just yeah, and that would make sense that now that they knew that the Lucha Bros are leaving, that suddenly like this they didn't care about the CMLL AAA beef as much.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that all these we had perfectly. That so generally speaking, our tier list is supposed to be looking out within the next year to see if somebody jumps, and every single one of these happened within the last year. So great job by us. Pat ourselves on the back. The likely jumps. This is where it gets a little bit fun. Um, we had Drew McIntyre, Nick Nemeth, Mustafa Ali, and Brian Keith. Starting with the top, Drew McIntyre did not jump. In
He did
fact,
not, but I do think we need to protect ourselves. We need to caveat that he jumped all over the place like that first couple months
yes,
of 2024. So this maybe like in a vacuum it looks like we were way off, but we were like shifting him around a lot.
yeah. Nick Nemeth just, in fact, did a re-signing with TNA, so that's good there. Mustafa Ali has not shown up anywhere long term, and
Yeah,
Brian Keith, we
we
were
were
right.
kind of wrong there.
Yeah, Brian Keith was one of our first like indie guys that we put on the tier list as like, hey, we should watch out for this guy. And we hit it out of the park. Now he's with the Learning Tree, everybody's favorite stable.
Yeah, we made that one work. You know,
Um,
people want to hate on the learning tree and Brian Keith, but I think it's I mean, Jericho is kind of done, but in terms of, you know, a vehicle for Big Bill and Brian Keith, it's not awful.
yeah, it's been a really good vehicle for Big Bill, I think, because he's getting
Yeah.
time to do promo work, which like when he was with Ricky Starks, he wasn't really getting to talk much, and now Jericho's letting him time to talk more. So I think Big Bill is going to be super over when he finally, choke slams the tree. So yeah, I'd say that we were like 50% on this one.
Yeah.
Lean Jump was very busy at this time last year. We had Katsuhiko Nakajima, which is a miss. Andrade, a hit. Ronda Rousey, miss. Dustin Rhodes, miss. Matt Cardona, miss. Shelton Benjamin, hit. Julia, hit. Camille, hit. And Leo Rush, hit also. So I'm seeing another
About 50-50, yeah.
around another 50-50. Nakajima is similar to Drew McIntyre, that he was just kind of floaty about his plans, and he might get what we have what we're terming for the WrestleWatch Awards, the Self Geek Award, which is somebody that was a little bit too high on their own supply, thinking that they would really jump and elevate themselves. First, we thought maybe New Japan would want him. Then it was All Japan might want him, and now he's just having fun in GLEAT, it looks like.
Yeah, and then I think Ronda Rousey was another one that I thought was interesting because she did make an ROH appearance. She did take a booking.
Yes, yeah, and that happened right before. So that was in November of 2023, and so that happened like a month or two prior. We were thinking that it's possible that Ronda Rousey would go and just be in AEW.
Yeah, that didn't happen. And it looks like now she's pretty much done with professional wrestling.
Yeah. Oh, and we have a question here from a one of our committee members, TC, about what is happening with Nakajima. Nobody knows anymore.
I think he's not going anywhere.
Yeah. So toss up. These were supposed to be our 50-50s. So if we have this 50-50, we're pretty good. Ricky Starks has not gone anywhere yet. Wardlow didn't go anywhere. Oh, Hijo del Vikingo didn't. Sammy Callahan Well,
didn't.
he did and he didn't. He went back to TNA.
Yes.
Seth Rollins stayed. Deonna Purrazzo jumped. Kevin Owens still jury's out on him, and Kaito Kiyomiya stayed. So most of these wound up staying where they were. I think the ones of note there are Sami Callihan. He was with MLW, I think, at this point, and he went back to TNA. Uh, Deonna Purrazzo jumped. Kevin Owens still don't know what's happening, and then Seth Rollins. We really thought that he was going to go somewhere. I think.
I was kind of going bullish on him that it's like it still makes a lot of sense for him to go.
Yeah.
And because now and you know what really bothered me? He'd made that statement the other day where he was talking about Cody,
Mhm.
and he said like, he's never seen anyone given the ball like that
Yeah.
and just really go. And he even said it's like I feel a little jealous about that, being given the ball. And I think just his language really kind of emphasizes the problem with him because it's like Cody, I'm this may be like sounds like I'm like, splitting hairs, but Cody was never given the ball. Cody wasn't given anything. Cody left and
Hmm.
then he built himself up and then he went back and he took the ball.
Yeah.
Like this is not a situation where it's like he sour grapes over because they liked him more than me. It's like no, he made them have no option other than to go with him. Like he could have done that. Seth Rollins could still do that right now, but it's probably too late at this point
Yeah.
because if he just I mean he could have done it. Like, and I think it just comes off very whiny. He's very whiny. That's my Seth Rollins rant. There you
So yeah, I think I'm surprised that he never went to free agency.
go. Yeah,
Um,
at the very least.
yeah. The,
Even if he did stay. Yeah.
yeah, the lean stay folks that we had 1 year ago here were Mickey James, Serena Deeb, Finn Balor, Sheamus, Santana, and El Phantasmo. The only one I think that we missed on was Santana, who
Yeah.
he went to TNA pretty soon after this even, because this was the beginning of 2024, and then third week of 2024 was the Hard to Kill pay-per-view where Santana was in TNA.
Yeah, I think we did pretty well on the lean stays. We kind of all assumed that these people were going to stick around. The one that I was always kind of weird on was Serena Deeb.
Hmm.
I thought that she was going to leave just because with her, it's been very weird where she's just gone for long periods. But apparently, she had a health scare, so it was a little different.
Yeah, she had.
But we didn't know about that.
Yeah. And then the safe stays of last year were Becky Lynch, which seems to be coming to fruition as such. Rhea Ripley, she didn't re-sign, but she never left. Jack Perry did, in fact, stay with AEW. Cody Rhodes, he resigned last year, at least through this summer with WWE. Redacted there is that's Vince McMahon, which we had on the tier list for some time for some reason. Um, MJF, who did announce that he had re-signed with AEW during 2024. Three, who has not signed anywhere yet. And here's the fun one, Okada.
Yeah. So we were way off on Okada.
Yes, yes,
We
we
didn't.
were.
Nobody thought. I don't. It was very very surprising. I think when the big press release came out that he was leaving New Japan, and it became clear that he was going to AEW. That was surprising.
Yeah.
MJF was obviously a memorable one to the point where he got that tattoo, and he built it up for a while.
Yeah.
Um, Cody Rhodes, and now I know people like maybe some people are looking at this and being like, why would you have Cody Rhodes even on the tier list? But it's like this is a man once again. Going back to my other point, he knows how to use his leverage. He knows how to make himself valuable,
Yeah.
and I think he's someone who would do everything he can to make him like. I'm not necessarily sold on the fact that he's going to end his career in WWE.
No, I think that he knows when it's time to leave a territory and how to position himself in the next territory, so to speak, to
Yes.
elevate himself higher than he was before. So,
That's
like,
that's
so
what he told Dave when he left. When he left AEW, he said like Dave was asking why'd you leave, and he said it was just time to leave the territory.
yeah, and I mean, like the main factor with that, of course, was that he would never be able to. I mean, he could have figured out a way to loophole himself to be able to compete for the world title. I think that if that had been his heel turn angle, it would have gone well. If he's reneges on his promise to the fans. Um, so I think that there was a way for him forward in AEW if he wanted to, but I think that he is bigger now than he would have been in AEW if he had done that turn and he had gone for the world title. I think he is bigger today than he would have been if he had stayed in AEW.
Yeah, and there was also something that happened between him and Tony that neither one of them are talking about, so we don't know what that was.
Yeah.
I tend to think it also had something to do with Brandy. I think
Mm.
Brandy was tied in as well, because a lot of people forget she just kind of like vanished,
Yeah.
lost a lot of power in the company at certain points, and then she left at the exact same time with Cody. It wasn't like she stuck around. It was they both went. So it feels like she was probably looped into this as well.
Yeah.
So it could have been something with her as you know, maybe that someone was rubbing her the wrong way or she was rubbing someone else the wrong way. That's all possible. So for that reason, I think. But as I said, you don't know with Cody. Cody's not an idiot.
Yeah.
Like
So
he's yeah.
yeah, and then TC in the chat was talking about Okada. This was before Okada announced he was leaving, right? Yes, this is actually even before the Battle in the Valley show where Okada beat Osprey in his farewell match for New Japan. Uh, yeah, yeah. And then in our defense, there had been exactly one homegrown New Japan guy who had ever left before, which was Shinsuke Nakamura. Yeah, that's another good point with that. Like, I didn't foresee it happening just because Okada was Okada. Like, he had it pretty well made in New Japan. He didn't need to jump unless he wanted more money, which seems like that was the case. And in the Wrestle Dynasty this year, none of the people that left New Japan this in the past year or two went back for the show. So you didn't have Okada, you didn't have Osprey, you did not have Jay White. You did have Kenny Omega finally coming back. Well, it's been 2 years since he was there, and the reason why he's been 2 years is because of diverticulitis. But he came back. He was the big like returning name I would say for New Japan
Yeah.
for that show. Um, yeah, so that those are the people that we had on the tier list. This one are people that we didn't see coming. 1 year ago, we didn't have any of these people on the tier list, and all of these people did wind up jumping. There was Naomi, which at this point she was the Knockouts champion. And then I think during that month she lost the belt, she dropped the belt, and she appeared on the Royal Rumble. Um, Gorillas of Destiny, Tamatonga, Tongaloa, and Hikuleo for that matter, all seem to be going with WWE. The Hardys, I guess we just didn't see Jeff
And
going.
yeah, and to be fair, we didn't really necessarily what did we consider TNA a jump still at this point?
At this point, we did.
Okay, that's fair.
Motor City Machine Guns, but were not on our radar as leaving TNA. But again, also at that
Sorry,
point,
real quick, and to go back to TNA and the Hardys, it was also that we didn't necessarily see them signing a contract. We thought they were kind of like going to just do one-offs and not actually sign a deal and see if they can get back to WWE or something like that.
yeah, and at this time also with TNA, everybody was pretty hyped up about TNA due to the relaunch of it. It felt like it was a positive era that was going to be very optimistic for TMA, and the year ended very differently than how it started for TNA, I think.
Yes.
Which makes no surprise that the Machine Guns left TNA to me. Uh, Eric Rowan and the Riot Six happened this year. Ethan Page is probably the biggest surprise of the year on this list. He left AEW and ROH, and he very quickly was made the champion in NXT.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
very, very surprising. But hey, he knows people.
Von Erichs are, I mean, they're
We
now,
had them on the
yeah,
tier list for a bit,
yeah.
but then we took them off, and now they signed.
The TNA NXT thing seems like it's possibly not actually real.
Yeah.
I think that it was possible that they just did it as a way to try out Jordan Grace and Joe Hendry.
You know what it feels like?
Hmm?
And then maybe this is closer to like the WWE Marigold thing. It feels similar to like AEW and DDT,
Yeah,
where yes, they have like a relationship, but it's not really so much a relationship as it's just like they have like certain talent that have ties to it and that want to continue to have ties to it, or they're just focused on certain talent. Like with DDT, it's obviously Takeshita
yeah,
and maybe Yuka Sakazaki. And then with WWE and Marigold, it's obviously Julia and I guess Io Sky because
yeah,
she's been taking jumping back and forth, but it's not like a full blown thing. It's just like there's connections because of certain talent.
yeah.
And then with WWE TNA, it's obviously this Joe Hendry situation where, well, I don't know what's going on with him.
I
We'll
don't know
see.
what's going on. Yeah. MXM. They've been having fun with ROH. Ricochet, not on the radar. Jake Lee. Some people doubted that one very much so.
Yeah,
Um,
I did. I mean,
uh,
yeah,
the Hurt Syndicate as a whole, so beyond Sheldon Benjamin, uh, and the Lucha Bros.
yeah.
The other
It,
those might be the big one. I think Lucha
those
Bros.
that's going to be the big one for sure. And then MXM, I just want to go back to that one. I think that that's another situation where we're still like trying to figure out. It's hard because we don't know what ROH is going to be like a year from now.
Yeah.
Like it'd be interesting. Here, let's do a little thing right now. Let's on the recording. What do you think ROH will be January 2026, 1 year from now?
Um, I think that it will be exactly what it is right now.
I agree. I I don't think they're going to get a TV deal or a streaming deal or anything like that. It's going to be exactly what it is right now. And if they do get something, it's probably going to be like True TV. But I don't even think they're going to do that. I don't think because I don't think WBD wants them. I think it waters down their product because having ROH on there kind of it weakens what AEW is as a brand, which was I thought I predicted this when Tony bought this company in the first place is that you are by having a separate brand you are now watering it down and it made absolutely no sense for WBD to care. And I if he honestly he should have ran ROH like PWG where it's just a monthly show and you do kind of cool dream matches that maybe aren't necessarily canon to AEW, and that's fine.
I think he should have done one of two things. Either just have bought the tape library and that was it, or um, set it up as a true developmental brand with it being named, like AEW Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Um, which seems like that's a possible direction that they might go in this year. But yeah, I just think that the main thing was the introduction of the ROH belts onto AEW television, where sometimes those champions never appeared on ROH television the entire time that they had the belt. And
Yeah.
that's frustrating for somebody that watches ROH. Now, I do want to give some praise to ROH in the fact that it has it has the most women's wrestling of any North American promotion other than maybe NXT. Um, like major-ish kind of promotions like MLW, TNA, on up. Um, it has one of the most amount of minutes dedicated to women, and it is definitely um, it is so different from how the main roster of AEW has been for the first part of that time before Mercedes Moné came to AEW. It felt like that he actually cared about women's wrestling there, whereas it felt like on the main roster of AEW that it was just something that he had to do. Um, so yeah, I think that the change with that came more with Mercedes getting signed and that changing how his booking ethos was, Tony Khan, rather than oh well, like women are getting over with ROH, maybe I'll book women more on AEW. I think it was more like oh well, now I have like possibly the biggest name in women's wrestling in the world now on my roster, so I'm going to push the women. So yeah, I think that ROH and somebody was suggesting maybe oh god, this is a rumor I saw was maybe Adam Copeland is going to beat Jericho for the ROH belt.
You know what? It's like I want to sit there and like groan, but it's like once again, it's like I don't even necessarily have that much affinity to ROH. Like I wasn't a big like ROH watcher back in the day.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't watching ROH. It's like what would you say is like ROH is like in ring peak? Like the
Uh,
aughts, like the early 2000s,
like
mid
2000,
2000s.
like 2005, 2006, or
Yeah,
the other peak would have been like when they had Bullet Club in there.
I think yeah, and that was more so like just piggybacking off New Japan.
Yeah.
So it's just like it was a different thing. And I think that that's part of it where I'm just looking at the situation and I just don't necessarily care.
Yeah, it's
And which is the problem. I should care.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, what a high note to end on, right?
that's the high note that we're gonna end on this week for
Yeah.
WrestleWatch.
Welcome to WrestleWatch. I don't care.
uh, where can they follow us, Doug? They can go on Twitter and Blue Sky. Follow us at WrestleWatch. We have our Substack, WrestleWatch.substack.com, and we'll be back next week. I think we're gonna have our awards ready by next week as another review of 2024.
Yes, I think that that's a good plan.
Cool.
All right. So with that, everyone, I am Doug.
And I am Ryan. Thank you all for